Off-grid drinking water is a big problem. It's not like you could just take a cup down to the river and scoop it in, take a big swig. You could be sick for days, and that would be a problem, especially in a tiny van. For our drinking water, we went with a portable RO system. It's a reverse osmosis. And Itehil was really only the option available that seemed to fit what we needed. But there are some new options out there. Purewell actually sent us this unit, and we are gonna test it out today. If you want to know how we handle free products, you can go check out this link on our website. As far as the Itehil water filter, we did purchase this ourselves. I'll put links for both these units that we're testing today down in the description below, so it's easy for you to find. You have found Explorer Trek Adventure with Kelly and Greg. We cover everything camping, from backpacking to adventure vans.
If you're new here, let's get you up to speed on our current water system. You can see how it potentially could work for you. This is our DIY water filter system. This filters water for the van itself. But we do not use that for drinking. We use that for washing dishes, doing whatever. For storing our drinking water, we use this 3-gallon corny keg. We've got a full video for this and our other water filter if you're curious about those, but those work really good. But we have to actually filter the water. And we've been using this guy here, which will compare it to the new Purewell version. You can see that the Purewell comes with an actual case. The Itehil one did not come with any kind of case. It did come with this bag, which I absolutely hate. I hate these bags for multiple reasons. One, they don't seal well, but two, it's like a little backpack. But why would you need a little backpack to carry your hoses? When we shove it above our microwave, these end up getting caught around different things and then it never wants to come out cleanly. This is our first time using this unit, so you'll get to see the whole results as we see them. The case itself actually is pretty decently made. The only thing I could say that could be better is like these zippers could be a little fatter, a little nicer. We have the unit itself, which actually is metal, which I really like that. The Itehil is plastic, and if you can see on here, this is from smashing around in the van. Having the metal container, I'm actually a little bit excited for. And here is the pre-filter for this unit. It has a similar pre-filter than the Itehil, but you can see that it's quite a bit larger. It's got a nice screen on it, but these have their own media inside. So this is actually gonna get rid of a lot of junk before it makes it into your nice big filters. And those bigger filters are a little bit on the expensive side. So having these cheaper pre-filters to clean stuff up before it gets in there, I like that.
The replacement filter for the Purewell is around $70 with a lifespan of about 30,000 gallons. Now the Itehil has an RO filter, which is around $46 with a lifespan between 600 to 800 gallons. But it also has the hybrid filter running around $35. And that light has a lifespan between 300 to 400 gallons. So these replacement filters aren't super cheap.
There's also a big difference in how these pre-filters sit into the water. The Itehil version is weighted, and you can hear like there's little beads in there. And so when you chuck this in the water, it immediately sinks and just sits on the bottom. But this filter actually comes with these two floats right here. These will, in theory, float it at the top, and then your filter will hang down just a little bit in the water. And that way you're not sucking sediment off the bottom. That's really the one thing I worry about when we use the Itehil version. Oftentimes we'll use a bucket and just scoop water and just throw this in there. Let's show you the inside of this pre-filter. The bottom of it unscrews, and this is where the media comes in, and these just pop right on and off. So in total, you're getting 4 filters. It has a fine mesh pre-filter on the outside, which should catch a lot of the bigger sticks and that kind of stuff. The bottom of this filter has a metal weight in it, so it gives a little bit of heft when you put this back together, which I do like how easy it is to put together. So adding or changing out these filters will be super easy. Having that weight on the bottom of the filter will keep this thing from floating on the surface. You can get a lot of scummy water on the surface, plus there's gonna be extra stuff that's stuck to the top of the water. You don't wanna suck that in, so having this hang down inside the water column actually is a bonus. On the very bottom of the case, there's an extra zipper, and this is where the actual hoses are. They even went as far as labeling these hoses for you. This is the raw water coming into the unit. The red one is the dirty water, and then the blue one is gonna be your pure water or your drinking water. There's also Velcro wraps to keep them into place, so when you're done with them all, you can quickly just shove them underneath there. The Itehil hoses are just free floating inside of this bag, which, as you know, not my favorite. The last thing in the bag here is something that I'm a little bit curious about if I will like it or not. I'm prejudging myself and saying that I won't like it, but maybe I will. So this is a faucet, which I think is really weird, but I could see it where if you wanted to set this up and then have it filter on the fly, and this actually has a spot where it goes right into there. This is a stainless steel faucet, so it's gonna be fine interacting with water, but I do like how it has this nice little handle here to turn the water on and off. What I'm kind of curious about is if you can have the unit on and then turn the water on, but then turn the water off, will the unit stay on and be able to pump later on? I don't know, there's a lot of questions. Let's go over the rest of the features on this case. I do like the inset handle. So when you're picking it up, and if you let go, you can see it snaps back into place, and there's a little indentation on there so that's totally flat. This is actually the place where you take the main filter in and out. And this pops out like that. There's our main filter. I do think it's a little strange to have a compass on here, but you never know, it might come in handy for somebody. And it actually, let's see if this actually works. North, that way. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's working. On the one side, there's an LED light. It does normal just on, but it'll also do an SOS pattern. And right here is a little cover where all your water comes in and out. So and it's nicely labeled. It also has little dust nubs too that go in there and keep junk from getting in your water, which actually is pretty handy because these things are sitting in the back of the van, and our back of our van doesn't seal like 100%. When we're going down gravel roads, the dust just kind of seeps in from the back and starts getting in, and by the time we're 20 miles in, there's a nice coating of dust on everything. Another one of my complaints about the Itehil is this flap here. It has a really low profile lip, and so when it goes in fine, but it stays there for about 4 minutes and then it falls out. This one is a lot tighter, but you can see the lip is a lot bigger, and it feels like it takes more effort to get in, which I'm hoping means it's gonna stay put. This one does not wanna stay put. And you can see all this white marks. That's from some of the hard water we filtered with this. Another big difference is there's all 3 ports. The raw, the dirty, and the clean are all in one side here. On the Itehil, you have your output on one side of the unit, and the input all comes from another side. And also the input is significantly larger. This is this bigger hose. Let me show you. This is the size of the input, and the outputs are like this. But on the Purewell, all of the inputs and outputs are at this size. On the back, there's 2 strips of some sweet reflective disco material, which actually is kind of cool. And then there's 2 vents, one on either side. On the front, you have your USB-C input, but that can also act as an output. So say you're in the backcountry like we were, where our battery was super low, and we were charging things with every battery we had, and we could use this to charge up our phones and cameras. On the front here, you got your technical data sticker. You should be able to see how big that battery is. Yeah, 5200 milliamp hour battery. On the bottom, it does have some feet, and these are kind of rubbery, but it will stick up off the ground a little bit. So if we're filtering on the dirt grossness, at least gets it off the ground a little tiny bit. The Itehil has the little tiniest feet, and it doesn't really get it off the ground. So when you stick this on the gross ground, the bottom gets dirty. Another big difference are the readouts. So if we click the power button, we hold it down, hear it beep, and you can see the power indicator up there. But this thing is blank because it's not actually on yet right now. And over on the Itehil side, there's no readout panel. You do have these little LEDs, and you have your on-off button here, and then a couple other buttons to reset and purge out the filters. Both of these units came with a little dust cover on the USB-C port. This one had a little unit, it comes off, and I've already lost it, if that gives you any indication. This one had a little leash, which you can see right there. But if you've noticed, there's no more dust cover, it ripped off. These units do have a little bit different filtration. On the Itehil unit, you've got your RO filter, or RO membrane right here, and this is their hybrid filter. So this has like a activated carbon and some other filters in it. It helps polish the water. Over on this guy, you only have the single filter here. This is your big filter. It has your RO membrane on the inside, and it's got a bunch of other layers. So it's kind of like the Itehil, but it's all in one instead of splitting it out. Some good, some bad with that. On this unit, you can replace just one or the other. This unit, you're gonna have to replace this unit. On the Purewell filter, it says you have your reverse osmosis membrane antimicrobial materials, which actually is nice if this is just going to be sitting around and not being used. And then your coconut shell activated carbon filter, which would help with the taste. On the bottom, it does have 3 little holes here. You just have to make sure you line them up. We'll put this guy back in here to get ready to do some filtering, and that clicks right nicely into place. So the last difference between these 2 filters before we actually get to start filtering is this unit does not have any kind of UV sterilizer. This one does. That is a huge thing. If you are filtering water that you know has nasty either bacteria or viruses, if for whatever reason that stuff makes it through the filters, that UV light should take care of it. There's actually one more thing, and this is also a big one. For this unit, we have to take our own TDS meter. And if you don't know what that is, it's a total dissolved solids meter. These have these little prongs on them, and you stick it in water. And it basically tells you how many parts per million of junk, of dissolved solids, are in the water. And it's a good indication of how clean that RO filter is making the water. Doesn't tell you if it's clean from bacteria or viruses. The Purewell filter actually technically has 2 TDS meters because on here it'll display the input TDS and then the output TDS. So you'll be able to see how dirty that water is coming in and then the clean water coming out. And you can tell if your filter is doing its job or if it's time to change the filter. We have to manually do that on the Itehil. As you can see, that Purewell has a ton of features compared to the Itehil. Unless it just performs terribly, which we're going to test in a second, I think it's going to be a winner. We stopped on the way here and grabbed some water out of a spring alongside of the road. So we have 5 gallons to filter. This is our source water. We're gonna have both water filters sucking from one bucket, but I did want to show you, we got a new bucket. This is our old one, and we like these. They're PVC, they're pretty indestructible. Technically not food grade or food safe, which means shouldn't put water in them either. This is, I think Nature Hike has like an offshoot brand called Black Dog. This is made out of EVA. I don't pretend to know what that means. I just know that it says it's food grade. It's not gonna be in the bucket that long, so either way it should be okay. This bucket zips up at the top, but then it has a little spout here where you could let water out. To make it easy to see the speed of these machines, these are where the clean water is going to fill up. We'll be able to see which one's faster. These outside ones, this is where the dirty water that these things spit out. And if you don't know how an RO unit works, it shoves water as hard as it can through this reverse osmosis filter. Only the microscopic water particles make it through that filter. All that other stuff gets washed away. So unlike a traditional filter, that stuff would get stuck to the filter. This literally just washes out the back. And that's what these would be. Even though that's considered dirty water, it's technically gone through the filter system, so it's actually pulled a lot of stuff out. You can actually use that dirty water for like washing dishes or washing your hands or doing stuff like that. It's also interesting that on the Itehil, the white is your clean water, and over on the Purewell, the white is your raw water. So they're totally different. I don't know, obviously there must not be a standard. So we'll put in our clean water, and we're just gonna clip them in here so they will stay. And then here we have the Itehil, which you can see it's noticeably smaller, and when I put it in, it sinks right to the bottom. And then this is the bigger Purewell filter, and it's floating pretty good right now. And so it's sitting right in the middle of the water column is where you want it. When you turn on these units, they'll go through a purge process. They'll suck in water, and then they will purge water over the RO filter for 30 seconds. So we should see these dirty water containers start to fill up around 30 seconds. Then that's when we'll see these clean water start to kick on. This is the first time we ran that Purewell, and the stuff that came out of it initially was kind of gross. So I'm guessing it was test water from the factory. So we are just running it through a purge process. It didn't say anything in the instructions on purging it. Now the Itehil one, on the other hand, it actually had specific instructions in a purging. I think I had to purge that thing for over an hour on the very first time I ran it. One thing we noticed once this thing turned on is it's kind of loud, it kind of clanks. If I push in the middle, it goes away. So it's almost like there's not like a rubber bushing that's missing or something. That in comparison to the Itehil noise, which running, it's done with its purge. This is its normal sound. Just kind of a little hum, a cranking hum. Doesn't have any clanking. We are done with the purge process on the Purewell filter, so we're ready to do our official test. Our source water is reading 51 parts per million. So it's pretty good starting water. We'll see how good that gets on both units. I also noticed if you turn this off, it kind of goes into a standby, but then it turns it completely off. So you have to kind of hold it down to turn it back off. So that's actually good. It'll save battery. And here we go, holding this one down. There we go. And you can see right away it's purging on our dirty containers. And we have a timer started, so we'll say how long it takes for it to actually produce the, I guess we'll just see the first one who makes it to one container full. And there's the Purewell making all of the noise. On the purge, the Itehil purged a ton of water, and the Purewell did about half. But this is interesting right here. As you can see, the Purewell is already up to here. Itehil is a little bit behind. Itehil on paper is supposed to be faster. And also, this is what's coming out of the dirty water side on the Itehil. But the Purewell is doing what I would expect an RO filter to do. RO filters normally produce quite a bit of waste. Usually it's either 2-to-1 or 1-to-1. It's been a little over a minute. We're almost halfway. It's probably really hard to see, but the Itehil is reading 35 parts per million and then 1 out of the clean water. And my other unit was saying this was at 54. So there's definitely a discrepancy. It's been 2 minutes. The Itehil has actually overtaken the Purewell by just quite a bit, actually. I think it's gonna win the race to the top here. And looking at our bad water, this Purewell is almost to the top. Itehil still has a ways to go. 2 minutes, 58 seconds, and we are overflowing. Although, this is very, very close. Now let's measure the output of the water, see what we get. Remember we had 53, 54, let's double check, 52 on our input water. This guy said 34. Let's check the Purewell's good water here. It is at 3 parts per million. That is really good. It was saying 1 on the little readout on there. Now let's check the Itehil. It is at 5 parts per million. Very, very close. Purewell is actually doing a little bit better. Now let's check our dirty water. This should be a big number. So low it's hard to read. We're at 116 for the bad water side. You can see that it's doing its job. And on the Itehil, we're at 102. So that's interesting. In the grand scheme of things, I think these are both producing roughly the same. This was 5, this was 2 or 3. And then the interesting part is this output water was definitely more concentrated than the Itehil output water of the dirty water, which is a little interesting because where's that other stuff going? Maybe that hybrid filter is some of that's getting stuck in there. I don't know. We're gonna repeat that test to see if we get the same results. It's been 3 minutes. Itehil just filled up its bottle and the Purewell has just a little tiny bit. So as far as speed goes, these things are neck and neck. Let's measure the results from round 2. This is the Itehil clean water. We're at 2 parts per million. Pretty good. Purewell, we're at 1 parts per million. So super, super close. I would say not even negligible. The dirty water for the Itehil is at 59 parts per million. And the dirty water on the Purewell is at 77. That tells us that it's producing great water. Strangely, the Purewell's output water, it has more material, more of the bad stuff in it. I don't know where it's going on the Itehil. It could be, and maybe some of you filter nerds can tell me, is this hybrid filter is maybe pulling out some of those particulates, and that's why the output water is less parts per million than we would expect to see. I wish there was a way for us to measure what the UV light is doing on this unit, but for us, we have no way of doing that. We just have to assume it's working. We see the light is blinking and then that says it's on. I asked Purewell if their UV unit was LED, and it's not. It is a low pressure mercury UV sterilization lamp. I don't know what that is, but I'm just assuming that it's good. They did say they did some drop testing, and stuff like this, it shouldn't harm the bulb at all. But they did say if it did, the bulb for whatever reason failed, you would get a notification. Originally, I told you that I was unsure if I liked this faucet. Well, we tested it out once, and I think it's actually pretty cool for some very niche uses. And let me show you why. So if we plug in, this is our good water output. It plugs right in there. And the cool part is it goes right onto the metal of the faucet. We'll turn our unit on. Beeps. Now we hit once. Should start. If we hit the little faucet here, you can hear it turn on. It starts producing water. My output of my bad water starting. And it's producing water up here on our little faucet. This is where if you had it on your counter or something, if you had this plumbed in, or if you had this thing down by a stream and you just had it, you're camping by a stream, you could have just set it there. This is definitely cool that you can do this, but I think the coolest part of this whole process is when you turn it off. So I flip up the handle, this unit is gonna sense that extra pressure, and you there, click. The whole unit just turned itself off. Although, if you come over here, you can see the control panel is still on. Which maybe it's hard to see on video, but it's on, you have to trust me. But now, if say, oh, I'm very thirsty, I'm gonna come over to my stream and get me some more water. Flip that on, unit kicks on, starts producing water. Well, that's enough, I click it off. And there. This faucet is pretty cool, although I do have to say I can't come up with a reason why we would use it with the way we camp. We're primarily using these to refill stuff like this. We're just gonna stick, the tube right into there. One thing to note, this thing does completely shut itself off after about 2 minutes. So if I turn on the water now, nothing comes out and we didn't hit any buttons at all.
Future Kelly here. We had quite a few questions about this system, so we contacted Purewell. Here's what they had to say. Our number one question was about the noise and if the machine was supposed to be that noisy. And they said, no, it was not supposed to be like that. They actually said that they optimized the design of the later batches to further reduce their noise. And to validate that, we watched some other YouTube videos on the reviews of the system, and none of their units were as loud as ours were. Earlier, Greg mentioned about how there is some really gross stuff that came out right at the beginning when we turned this on. We said, asked them, is that normal? And they said, yes, on the first purge, it is normal, yellowish stuff. So we would definitely recommend doing a purge for at least 15 minutes. We did 30 minutes. Their instructions did not mention anywhere about that first purge. So definitely purge your system. The Itehil, we actually did it for an hour. Another question we had was about the RO filter itself. The instructions showed that there should be a light film on it to remove, and we could not find one at all. And they said, actually, it does not ship with one on it. The little pre-filters, yes, they have a film. Big one, nope. Another question we had was about the TDS variation between our little handheld one and the system itself. And we asked if that was normal, it not matching up, and they said, yes, absolutely normal. But our numbers were similar enough. You're going to be able to see exactly when it's time to change out that filter. One final important thing, you may see this on their webpage or their pamphlets, desalinization. That 95% number that you see in their materials is just more about an efficiency of their filter. It does not mean that you can be drinking seawater and surviving. That would end very badly. The Itehil did produce really great water, but that definitely is not the whole picture. When we give a recommendation, we're looking at the company as a whole. And when they don't respect creators in the community, that gives us a lot of pause.
My final thoughts, I'm gonna give the win to the Purewell. It just has so many more features than the Itehil. The built-in UV sterilizer, the metal case, which is one of my favorite things. It's got the faucet you can put on here. It's got the built-in TDS meters, although they were a little less sensitive than my handheld unit, where the Itehil doesn't have any of those. So I think this thing's gonna live in the van for the next 6 months, and we'll do a long-term review of it and see how it performs.
You can go watch this video next. You can find us at explorertrekadventure.com, and we'll see you next time.